Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. On this segment, I'll title this segment Buffet Bandits. Once again, I'm going to title this segment Buffet Bandits. Our enemies are like buffet bandits. What they like to do is they'll go to the buffet, eat to the full, tell you how good the food is, and come time to pay, you catch them sliding out the back door. Once you confront them that they owe you for what they have eaten to the full, then all of a sudden, that very person that was going for fourth and fifth through the buffet line, they have a problem with you at this point. Once you confront them to let them know they have eaten and have not paid, because their intent is not to pay. And once confronted that they are stealing from you or have stolen from you, then they become angry with you, and all of a sudden they're telling you how the food was no good, etc., when 10 minutes ago they were eating everything you had to offer. And I say that to say this: once our enemies, those of the other nations, are told that, number one, the prosperity that you enjoy is because of the foul manner and the violence in which you have treated our forefathers and continue to treat us today. And for this wickedness and for this violence towards our people over the centuries, for this you must pay. And many of them, their response is, I'm not paying for nothing. I didn't do anything. I didn't have slaves. I've never enslaved anyone. I've never sold anyone, etc. So they refuse to acknowledge the error of their forefathers and the error of their own ways, because once there is an injustice done unto us by them, they don't speak up against it. They do not speak up on our behalf. So in silence, they express their complicity. They're complicit in the foul manner in which we are treated and the abuse that we received at the hands of our enemies. So I was having a frank discussion one time with a gentleman who is of another nation, and he wanted to know exactly. I asked him, I said, what if I killed your forefathers? What if I hung them, starved them, raped them, enslaved them without wages, etc., and did all the things that your people have done to my people in killing off generations, etc.? I asked him, I said, how much money can I give you to make amends for that? And his answer was very straightforward. He said, there's nothing, there's no amount of money you can give me to make amends for that. And I expected that answer. Now, with our people lack the understanding and the value of life and generations. As our sons are killed, many of our people are quick to go in the back room, keep their mouth shut, sign an agreement, take some money for their dead son or sons. We must understand that this money has no value. They can print this money from now till whenever. They can print it up to the sky. They can determine its value system. They can make it worth what it is today. They can make it worth zero tomorrow if they so choose. So when they call one of us, our people, the house of Israel, in the back and give you $5 million for your dead son, your enemies have a clear understanding of what happens once you get that money. What they have done, they've eliminated your seed. That's number one. The value of that should be priceless. But our people do not understand self-worth. That's number one. Once they give us this $5 million for turning a blind eye to the murder of one of our sons, once you get that $5 million, our enemies know exactly what's going to happen. Anything you buy with that $5 million, that money returns back onto them. They know this. So you're going to take the $5 million and you're going to go buy all the things that you've never had. A bigger house, a nicer car, you name it. They own the lumber companies. They own the building companies. They own the car industry and all the great manufacturers of the automobiles. Our enemies own them. So any money you spend, once they give you those $5 million, that money is returned back onto them. It is no loss to them in any way, shape, or form. And if you're smart enough to have any money remaining, you take that money and you put it in an investment bank, or you take it and put it in a regular commercial bank. If you did that, either way, you have taken that money and exchanged it for goods with your enemies. You've made him a little bit richer than he was. Then you're going to turn around and take that money and hand it over to him in one of his banks for safekeeping. That's how stupid we have been. And some of us continue to make this error. So he told me clearly, this gentleman told me clearly that there's no amount of money that can ever replace us killing his family. And so we should feel the same way. And I asked him what he would do. And he said he would kill those who killed his family. I said that seems to be a fair and reasonable assessment and response. And then his question to me was, what do I think would be fair? Now, many of us are seeking after reparations. Reparations is money. It can be given in the form of money. It can be given in the form of land. Keep in mind that we were not to be in these lands in the first place. And keep in mind that the money that this man has is worthless, has no intrinsic value. It's paper. It's worthless. It's a fiat currency. Next, as it pertains to what is fair, my response to him was this. What would be fair would be that all that your ancestors have done to mine, that all of that be done unto them. That is a fair and just judgment. No money, no land, none of that. As our forefathers were killed, as our grandmothers and great-grandmothers were killed and raped, as our children were fed to alligators and beaten and abused, as we were separated from our families and shipped away across lands, ripped from our mothers, ripped from our fathers, ripped from our families, as we suffered all of those stripes, what would be fair would that those who have done it to us, that all of their ways be brought upon their own head. And once that was said, you could almost see the shock on his face, because what he is not willing to do and what our enemies are not willing to do, they are not willing to pay for what they have done. They are content with the laws that their forefathers have set up that have allowed them to prosper. And when the race started, they had a 50-yard head start because of laws that was put in place to keep them ahead of our people. So they've never had to fairly and squarely compete. And once that response was given, like I said, you can see the shock on his face. That's not what he expected to hear. Our people normally can be appeased with money and with position. And when we choose to value the lives of our babies, the lives of our elders, and the lives of ourselves above their money, that can frighten them, because then you're dealing with a man that cannot be bought, and that in essence makes him dangerous. However, we're not to be fearful of our enemies if we are to turn to the Most High and His law. So, we've got some buffet bandits as our enemies. They're willing to eat to the full, but when you tell them it's time to pay, or that you will have to pay, they're not willing to pay. What they want something for free. And they don't want to pay and feel that they shouldn't have to pay. But the Most High said that they will pay. Deuteronomy chapter 30. If we return back unto His laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, all those who have afflicted us, He will take all the curses that's been upon us and put it upon them. So they're going to have to pay, and there's absolutely nothing that they can do about it. So, do not be fearful of your enemies, number one. Also, do not do any manner of violence towards your enemies. What you're simply to do is to turn to the Most High with your whole heart and your whole soul, obey His laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. And in doing so, He will reverse these curses. Deuteronomy chapter 30, go and read it. He didn't say pick up guns against them. He didn't say grab a bullhorn and get in the street and cuss them out and upset them. Didn't say that. All He said is simply, hey, return unto me, and I will return unto you. And He will reconcile this relationship. And He will take all these curses and put it upon our enemies and those who hated us. And He will gather us out of these nations where He has scattered us and place us back into the land that He promised unto our forefathers. That's it. That's as hard as it's going to get. Is us simply humbling ourselves and facing Jerusalem, lifting our hands in prayer or in supplication, admitting our faults, and in so doing admitting our faults. We don't know what our faults are until we go into this document, into this law, and read it. So once we read it and realize what our faults are, then we are to correct it by not doing them anymore, ever. And as you start to do it, your son is going to see it. Your brother is going to see it. Your father is going to see it, etc., etc. And more people will start to turn to it. And the more of us that turns to this law, then you will start seeing the Most High move on the behalf of His people. So, we're dealing with buffet bandits. They don't want to pay. But guess what? We have transgressed the Most High's law. We are His people, and we paid, and we are paying. So if our enemies think what they have done to us, the people of the Most High, that they have done this and got away with this, or will not pay for this, not only are they arrogant in their thinking, they're just plain silly if they think it's going to happen that way. Anyway, stay in this law, return unto the Most High, that way we may reconcile this relationship, and we will stop having all these problems with our families, our health, and the people around us. Return back onto this law. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Most High is going to make these buffet bandits pay. Peace, and y'all bless.